All the characters in the story are over 18 years old. Aaron ran up the stairs of an old apartment building, taking the stairs two at a time. His sister Emma lived on the third floor. It was Aaron's birthday, and Emma invited her older brother to dinner. He didn't want to be late. They haven't seen each other in months. Aaron and Emma lived an hour away from each other, but their busy schedules made it difficult for them to get together. Aaron was a recent graduate of medical school, sometimes working 20-hour shifts as an intern at a nearby hospital. Emma did a double job. She was a culinary school student by day and a sous chef at a popular French restaurant at night. Aaron went to Emma's door and hesitated before knocking. He was nervous, and he wasn't sure why. Maybe it was because he hadn't seen her for a long time. Maybe it was because of his sister's character, so different from his own. Light, cheerful, and always sparkling, with a taste for mischief. Or maybe it was because of what happened on the mountain 4 years earlier. He didn't have time to think about it anymore because the door swung open. Emma was standing in front of Aaron in the doorway, and he had to restrain himself from gasping. Aaron knew his sister was pretty. His friends often reminded him of this, despite the fact that they were 4 years older than her. In high school, Aaron always found it a little creepy that his friends were sneaking glances at his middle school-age sister, even if she was undeniably pretty. Aaron had long since come to terms with the fact that although he was a good-looking guy, his younger sister was in a different league of attractiveness. Wherever she went, she had fans, even among his friends. Emma has never looked better than when she stood in the doorway to congratulate Aaron on his 26th birthday. A white-toothed, impatient smile and wide-open shining eyes always attracted his attention in the first place. Aaron thought he was pleased to see how enthusiastically his sister greeted him. Emma's straight hair was cut in a wedge that reached her shoulders. She has been following this rule ever since she became a sous chef. It was practical, but stylish. Emma was one of those girls who looked glamorous like the girls next door without trying too hard. But Aaron thought she looked more glamorous than usual. He wasn't an expert on cosmetics, but it seemed to him that she was wearing more makeup than he had seen her wear before. "Aaron," she called, spreading her arms. "I'm so glad to see you, big brother," she said. "Happy birthday." "It's good to see you too, Emma," Aaron said. "I'm really glad." Emma turned around and Aaron followed her into her apartment. As soon as he entered the apartment, he was enveloped in heat and a smell coming from the kitchen. The hot, humid air was filled with the pungent smells of onions and spices. Aaron loved good food. He didn't have much time for this while he was busy with his internship duties. The scent wafting from Emma's kitchen immediately caused his stomach to rumble. Aaron could smell the kitchen, but he couldn't see it. He entered the small living room of Emma's apartment. Aaron looked around. There was nothing to see from the outside of the building, but once inside, he realized that the landlord had taken steps to renovate the interior. The plastered walls were smooth and white, and they were finished with freshly painted wood. Aaron was impressed that Emma could afford such a nice apartment. He was also amazed at the care with which she decorated it. Obviously, she liked the color. Chairs, sofas, lamps, and assorted knickknacks shimmered in all shades of the rainbow, but somehow Emma's experienced eye managed to combine all the colors together. Emma's love of color contrasted with Aaron's preference for monochrome. His own house was decorated mainly in gray-white and muted earthy tones. When Aaron finished looking around, he turned to Emma, who was staring at him intently. "You have a roommate, right?" Aaron asked. "Is she anywhere near here?" "No," Emma said. "Riley's gone away for the weekend. He visits his brother. It's just us here." "Well, I feel special," Aaron said. "Whatever you're cooking, it smells fantastic. Why don't you come in and take a look?" Emma said. She turned around and Aaron followed her into the kitchen. The kitchen was bright and colorful, like the rest of the apartment. It was small, a narrow rectangle lined with black and white tiles in a checkerboard pattern, with a stove and cabinets on one side and a sink and refrigerator on the other. Emma used her limited space to maximum effect. The kitchen was filled with pots and pans, bottles of spices and colorful vegetables, but the arrangement of everything seemed orderly, not chaotic. Emma knew a lot about the kitchen. It has always been so. Aaron remembered Emma as a child. Her eyes barely reached the level of the countertop as she begged her mother to let her cook. Mom let her. By the time Emma was in high school, she was a better cook than their mom. although Aaron would never tell his mom about it. Mom didn't seem to mind. She liked to shift the responsibilities of the kitchen to her young, energetic daughter, whose enthusiasm for cooking gave her mother the opportunity to relax. For Emma, cooking was not a daily routine, but an art. Steam rose from pots and pans on the stove. Emma opened the oven door, and a puff of smoke came out from inside. She reached into the oven with a thick glove and pulled out a baking sheet with yellow-orange puffballs. Aaron didn't recognize them, but his nose caught the rich aroma of baked Gruyere cheese. Emma put the tray on the stove and took off her mittens. She put another large dish in the oven, which was standing nearby. She took a bottle of white burgundy from the counter and poured it into 2 glasses. She took one and handed it to Aaron, who took it, and she took a tray with orange puffballs, and they went into the living room. Aaron and Emma sat down in their seats, and Emma offered Aaron a puff pastry ball with cheese. Aaron reached for one. "What is it called?" he asked. "Gouger," Emma replied. Aaron, who did not speak French, was impressed by Emma's accent. Aaron took the cheese ball with his finger and brought it to his lips. He took a bite. It turned out to be a layered, fragrant piece. "Wow, Emma," Aaron said. "It's amazing." He took another bite and another. Aaron looked at Emma and smiled, holding mouth-watering pieces of baked cheese in his mouth. Emma was holding a cheese ball in her hand, but her attention was on Aaron, not the snack. "It's been a long time, Aaron," she said. "It's been too long," he said. "I'm sorry about that. My internship makes me work like an ox." "I'm sorry to hear that," she said. Emma stared at Aaron. "Do you have time for a personal life?" Emma asked. "Are you seeing anyone?" "Personal life? What's it?" Aaron asked, laughing. "I can't remember my last date. I'm a medical intern, remember? What about you? Do you have a boyfriend?" "I've had a couple dates in the last 2 months," Emma said, "but no one in particular. None of those who caught my attention. Riley tried to set me up with a guy she knew, but it didn't work out." "I'm sorry to hear that," Aaron said. "I think we're just unlucky in love right now." Aaron was sure the men must have been paving the way to Emma's door, so she must have been very picky if she didn't have a boyfriend. "I need to buy something," Emma said, interrupting their conversation. Aaron forced himself to look away from his sister. He looked around the room. He saw a framed black and white photograph on a side table next to the sofa he was sitting on. It was his picture. Aaron had never seen this before, but he experienced only a moment of confusion before he realized where and when it was done and by whom. Emma took this photo at the top of the mountain they climbed together 4 years earlier. It was August. Emma was 18 years old, and she was going to enroll in her first year of college. Aaron was going to go to medical school. They decided to climb to the top of a nearby mountain together before they both went to school. Aaron drove his battered Hyundai for an hour and a half to the beginning of the trail and arrived there in the late afternoon. In his backpack, he carried sandwiches and water for himself and Emma. While climbing the mountain, Aaron was amazed by Emma's high energy. Aaron walked at a steady pace, but Emma was everywhere, lagging behind him, pacing beside him, racing ahead of him on frisky legs. Aaron couldn't remember a more joyful day spent with his sister. They talked incessantly all the way up the mountain, and the August heat and sunlight fell on them. Halfway there, they sat down for a long lunch in the dappled shade of an oak tree. Emma talked about going to college in a few weeks. Aaron shared his concerns about medical school. After finishing lunch and talking about school, Emma thanked Aaron for bringing food for the hike. She told him that she would make amends someday. They continued up the steep, dusty path. By the time they reached the top, their bodies were covered in a layer of dirt and sweat. They were standing alone at the top. The sun was already low in the sky, flooding the surrounding hills with a golden glow, interrupted at irregular intervals by shadows winding through the valleys below them. On its northern side, the peak abruptly ended in a cliff 100 meters high, and Aaron and Emma walked to the edge and stood silently, looking at its foot below. Emma took her small camera out of Aaron's backpack, asked Aaron to pose at the edge, and took a picture of him. He took a picture of her. She put the camera away, and they walked back to the edge of the cliff, looking out at the olive mountains that rose and rumbled in all directions to the misty horizon. Then Emma took Aaron's hand and squeezed it tightly. Whether it was out of fear, joy, or just impulsiveness, Aaron didn't know, but he squeezed her hand back and they looked at each other. Somewhere in the back of Aaron's mind, the thought flashed that what he was doing was wrong, but the desire to kiss his sister drove that thought back. When they finally pulled away, their eyes studied each other. They had no answers for what they had done or for their feelings about it. They didn't say anything to each other. They looked at the sun hanging low in the west and realized that they had better hurry down the mountain. Otherwise, they would soon have to walk in the dark. For the few kilometers it took to get back to the car, they walked in silence, racing against the oncoming darkness, bumping their feet into each other and trying to make sense of what had happened between them. By the time they reached the beginning of the trail, it was deep dusk over the mountain. In the car on the way home, and for the past 4 years, neither Aaron nor Emma had ever talked about what happened on the mountain. But Aaron never forgot about it. Now, in his sister's apartment, Aaron looked at himself in the photo, looking 4 years younger. In the photo, his hair was longer and more wavy than it is now. But Aaron noticed his eyes. In the photo, Aaron was looking directly into the lens, at the photographer, his sister, and his eyes shone with an unmistakable expression of love. "I'm back," Emma called, breaking the spell that bound her brother. "Are you okay?" she asked after Aaron shook his head and didn't say anything. "Yes, yes," he said. "What is it?" he asked, pointing to the colorful gift bag in her hand. "This is your gift. I thought we'd open it before dinner." "Thanks," Aaron said, taking it. He pulled out a blue and white wrapping paper from above and reached inside. He pulled it out and opened it to show his gift. A stick of pink lip gloss. "What is it, sis?" Aaron asked, shaking his head. Emma grinned at him. "Don't you remember?" Aaron looked at the glitter again and frowned in puzzlement. His eyes widened as he realized what it was. "No way," he said. "Is that what I think it is? My 15th birthday? Where did you get this?" Emma clapped her hands and giggled. She leaned back on the sofa. On his 15th birthday, Aaron, a shy, awkward, and pimply teenager at the time, opened Emma's gift in front of 12 of his friends and pulled out a lip gloss, the one he was holding now. His friends roared with laughter, and Aaron's cheeks turned red with embarrassment. He threw lip gloss at Emma, and it hit her forehead. Later that day, long after the party was over, he apologized to Emma for throwing it at her and even laughed a little, but he never saw lip gloss again, until now. Emma held out her hand. "Here," she said. "I bought this when I was 11 years old. I don't expect you to use it, but you don't have to throw it back at me. I'll take this." He handed it to her. "I was fooling around," Emma said. "It's not really your gift. It's for later, and it's real. I thought that on this birthday, out of respect for your old age, I would play my joke early." "I appreciate that, sis," Aaron said. "And now let's have some more drinks," she said. They finished off the tray with balls of puffed cheese, washing them down with sips of cool white wine. "I need to get back to the kitchen," Emma said. "Would you like to join me?" "Of course," Aaron said. "That's where all the most wonderful smells are. And your company, of course." Aaron followed Emma into the kitchen. If the living room was warm, then the kitchen was hot and humid because of cooking. Emma took the lid off a large saucepan and beckoned Aaron to see what was in it. A thick orange-pink broth bubbled inside. The smell of the sea wafted to his nose. Emma turned down the fire. "What is it?" Aaron asked. "Lobster soup. You like lobsters, right?" "I like it." "Wow. It smells amazing." "It'll taste even better this way," Emma said, grinning. "Everything will be ready soon." Aaron watched Emma chop vegetables and move pots. She opened the oven to check something inside, and another puff of steam came out. Aaron noted the speed and efficiency with which Emma moved around the kitchen. She stopped moving, took a sip of wine from her glass, and stared at Aaron again. Her expression, which had been playful a moment ago, suddenly became serious, almost worried. Aaron was amazed at the change in her. "Is something wrong?" he asked. Emma bit her lip and didn't answer right away. "I'm not sure," she said. "There's something there. I need your help, but I'm embarrassed to ask for it." Aaron was startled by the change in her tone. Emma seemed worried. "Emma," he said, "you shouldn't be embarrassed. I'm your brother. You can tell me anything." Emma didn't answer at first. Instead, she stared at the floor. Then she looked at Aaron. "I was there the other day. I felt like myself. I felt something." Emma paused and looked from her brother to the kitchen wall. What? What did you feel? Aaron asked. He waited in silence for her to answer. As he waited, he could hear his heart pounding. I do not know, Emma continued. I thought I felt a lump. I wasn't sure. I called my doctor and made an appointment, but it's only a week later. I'm kind of going crazy. Aaron took a step closer to his sister. Oh, Emma, he said. I'm sorry. It's probably nothing, but I'm sure the doctor can confirm it for you. I'm sorry it bothers you. I know, Emma said. Maybe I'm not worried about anything, but I have 7 days left to wait, and it's driving me a little crazy. I was interested. Emma looked away, then back at her brother, and away again. What? Aaron asked. Emma looked away from the kitchen wall and looked into her brother's eyes. I was wondering, she said after a pause, if you could help me find out if there's anything there. I don't want to wait another 7 days. Aaron saw the worry on Emma's face. I'm just an intern, Emma, Aaron said. This is not my specialty. Your doctor will give you a better opinion than I can give you. I know, Emma said, but I trust you. I know how smart you are, big brother. Can you just do this for me, please? Emma's eyes stared straight and unblinkingly into Aaron's. It was a strange request, and his mind was pondering its ethical implications. But with those wide-open eyes fixed on him, he knew he couldn't say no. All right, he said. Probably. What do you want me to do? Emma didn't hesitate. I didn't feel anything, Emma, he said. I think everything is fine. Emma closed her eyes and breathed a loud sigh of relief. An alarm sounded on the stove. Emma jumped. It's dinner, she said. I have to take this out. Emma put on the oven mitts, opened the oven, and bent down to take out a rectangular dish. Voila, she said, putting the dish on the empty burner of the stove. Aaron became more and more agitated seeing his sister in such a state. He was still dizzy from what he had seen and felt, but Emma's attention was on the food. She bent over the pot of soup. Emma closed her eyes and inhaled the fragrance emanating from its surface. She seemed pleased. Without taking off her gloves, she took a heavy spoon, dipped it into the soup, and brought it to her mouth. It's almost ready, she said. I'll let it boil for a few minutes. The beef in burgundy should remain hot under the lid. The potatoes should be fine too. The smells coming from the stove were simply divine. They almost distracted Aaron from his feelings for his sister. It was all Aaron could do to keep his eyes on his sister's face. Are you okay? What is it? She asked. You look pale. Well, he said. It's simple. I know, she said. It was a little weird. I'm sorry if it bothered you, but it's a big relief for me. She stirred the contents of the pot with a large wooden spoon. So, Aaron, Emma began and fell silent. Yes? Aaron asked, grateful that she seemed about to change the subject. I noticed that you were looking at your picture in the living room, the one I made with you 4 years ago. Emma had Aaron's attention. Yes, I did it, he said. What's wrong? We never talked about what happened that day, Emma said. Aaron paused. What is there to talk about? He asked. It happened. This shouldn't have happened, but we can't change that. Emma didn't answer right away. You're saying this shouldn't have happened, she said. But why not? Aaron was confused. What do you mean? He asked. I mean, I've never regretted what happened that day on the mountain. Not for a single moment. And you know what? I don't think you regretted it either. If you say you're sorry, I don't believe you. You seemed pretty enthusiastic at the time. Aaron didn't say anything for a while. When he spoke, his words sounded slow and halting. Why are you talking about this? He asked. What's going on? Emma looked away. I told Riley what happened. She wanted to know all the details, so I told her. I told her everything. I told her about how good it was. I was confused. I thought she'd be disgusted, but I told her anyway. The words just came out. I couldn't help myself. And you know what? She wasn't disgusted. When I finished, she had a huge smile on her face. And do you know what she told me? She told me that she had been partial to her brother for many years. They're twins. They've always been close. One day, not so long ago, they became much closer. She told me about it over a bottle of Chardonnay that we finished off one evening. She invited her brother, Ryan, to dinner. That evening I was visiting my mom and dad, so the apartment was at their disposal. Emma stopped and pointed vaguely in the direction of the other room. Do you know who she's with now? With her brother. She visits him at his apartment on the beach. They're going to do it again. At least that's what she says. I do not know if he knows, but that is her plan. And Riley is pretty good at getting what she wants. Riley always thought you were kind of a hot guy. Something like that? Aaron couldn't think of anything else to say. He was stunned by what Emma was telling him. Well, big brother, Emma said. You're kind of boring. You look good, but, you know. Aaron didn't know what to say. He staggered at Emma's words. Why are you telling me this, Emma? Emma didn't say anything. She looked away from Aaron and stared at the ceiling. She looked at the stove. The soup is bubbling. She grabbed a large spoon from the table, dipped it into the soup, and raised it to her lips. Steam rose from the pinkish broth. It was too hot, because when she brought it to her lips, she immediately pulled back the spoon and said, "It's hot." Her breath caught in her throat, and she screamed. "It's hot," she exclaimed again. "What are we doing?" he asked. "What is it?" Emma didn't answer him right away. She stared at him, and her expression changed. Fun, desire, and curiosity played on him in equal parts. "We're having dinner, big brother," she said at last. Emma stood up and walked away from her brother. Emma took 2 soup bowls from the cupboard and poured steaming hot soup into them with a long-handled ladle. She poured a spoonful of fresh cream into each bowl. "Have a seat," she said, pointing with her elbow at the round table in the center of the small dining room opposite the kitchen. Aaron walked over to the table and sat on a chair on the far side so he could watch his sister still cooking in the kitchen. The table was sturdy and made of dark, fine-grained wood. She was a chef, an artist, in her element, cooking dishes with skillful economy and grace. She opened the stainless steel bread maker and took out a loaf. She put it in an oblong wicker basket. Steam rose from the cake, and its fragrance spread through the room, reaching Aaron's grateful nose. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath. When he opened his eyes, she was carrying bowls of soup and a basket of bread loaves on a large platter to the table. She set the table and used a long plastic lighter to light 2 tall, thin candles in pewter candlesticks. She took a few steps back to turn off the kitchen light. Their dinner was lit only by the flickering of candles and the soft glow coming from the living room. "Dinner is served," Emma said. "Enjoy your meal." She didn't sit down right away. "You look amazing, Emma," Aaron said. He didn't know what else to say. "Thank you, Aaron," she said. "I wanted to look good for your birthday." Instead of sitting down, she walked over to Aaron's side of the table and reached for a bottle of red burgundy. She raised her glass. "To my older brother, Aaron," she said. "Happy birthday." "Thank you," Aaron said weakly. It was surreal. His sister was sitting in front of him at the dinner table. "I bet you didn't expect this on your birthday," Emma said, her eyes sparkling in the candlelight. No," Aaron said. "I didn't know what to expect, but I didn't expect this. You've always been good at surprises, but this one is the biggest yet. I've always liked to get you off balance," she said. "You've always done that. You're still doing it. It was easy to upset you. You were so serious. I'm always learning. It was so much fun teasing you and fooling around with you." Emma paused and smiled. "I was a boy, wasn't I?" "God, yes," Aaron said. "You were such a brat. I guess now that I think about it, it seems charming, but it didn't seem charming at the time. It was just annoying. I liked annoying you. I didn't mean anything harmful. I've always wanted to get your attention. Sometimes it was so hard. You've always been focused on something. That's what I can't understand," she said. "What?" Aaron asked. "What you did on the mountain. My serious, diligent older brother, who has never broken the rules. What made you do that? I never asked you. We never talked about it. It's been driving me crazy ever since, wondering why you did it." "I don't know, Emma," Aaron said, looking down at his plate. "I don't believe it, Aaron," Emma said. "I think you really know. Maybe you don't want to say what you know, but I think you know. You don't want to say that, but I want to hear you say it." Aaron looked up from his plate and looked at his sister. "Until this day, I would have thought that anyone who predicted something like this would be crazy. I always knew you were pretty, but I've never looked at you that way. But that time on the mountain, everything was different. You were sweaty and dirty, and you were my sister, but you were so beautiful. That's what I remember." Your face is in the sunset. I didn't have a girlfriend at the time, but when I saw you there, on top of the mountain, I thought that's exactly how I want my girlfriend to be. I am so sorry. You have nothing to regret, Aaron, Emma said. She turned her attention to the food. We'd better eat before it gets cold. Emma and Aaron put a spoonful of soup in their mouths for several minutes. The taste was subtle and refined, but Aaron found it difficult to pay attention to his food, no matter how tasty and fragrant it was. He kept stealing glances at his sister, who was sitting across the table. Every time he did this, he saw that she caught his eye on her. She smiled. Emma shrugged when Aaron looked up from his soup and looked at her. This can't really be happening, can it? He asked himself. The culinary attack on his senses had stirred up his brain and made it difficult to think clearly. Even when his eyes were closed, the pungent fishy smell of the soup filled his nose. Aaron opened his eyes and saw Emma getting up from the table. Time for the next course, she said. She pushed back her chair and walked around the table, standing a meter away from Aaron. I won't need it for the next course, she said. Do you want to eat the next dish? Emma asked him. Aaron swallowed. Of course. He couldn't think of anything else to say. Emma turned away and headed back to the kitchen. After a few minutes at the stove, Emma returned, holding a white serving dish in each hand, covered with mittens. Aaron had never been served dinner by a woman before, and the smells rising from the hot dishes with mashed potatoes and beef burgundy reached his nose before his sister came to the table. Emma placed each dish on a metal stand on the table in front of her brother. When she was done, she walked around the table, stood next to her chair, and also put a spoonful of food on her plate. However, she did not sit down. Aaron wanted to pounce on the food, the smell of which was driving him crazy with hunger, but he couldn't take his eyes off Emma. Do you remember when I said that your real gift would be later? What is it? She asked. Well, here it is. I'm your gift, big brother. Aaron tried to say something, but the words stuck in his mouth and came out as nothing more than a faint croak. The conflict tormented Aaron from the inside. Emma. He began to speak. Don't say anything, Emma said. Not yet. Let's eat something. She picked up her wine glass and held it in front of her. Aaron followed suit, and they clinked glasses. Cheers, big brother, Emma said. There was something about the way she said big brother that struck a chord with Aaron. It made him nervous. Aaron put down his glass and took a sip of wine. Emma put her glass down on the table and picked up her fork. She twirled it, and it glistened in the dim light. All this time, her eyes were fixed on Aaron. Aaron followed Emma's example, eating pieces of beef, which was delicious, while keeping his eyes on Emma. Aaron and Emma ate this way for several minutes. Emma speared a large piece of beef with cloves on her fork. Emma lifted her fork in front of Aaron's face. Aaron's eyes never left Emma's. He couldn't say anything. Emma fed several pieces of beef to her brother in the same way. Emma stopped. Aaron waited to see what would happen next. Do you want some wine? What is it? She asked. I think it would be the perfect combination with dinner for now, he said. Emma reached forward and took Aaron's glass, not her own. Emma smiled at Aaron with a Mona Lisa smile. A smile that combined desire, mystery, emotion, and longing, the existence of which Aaron had not even suspected until today. But he was getting up to speed quickly. You should be drinking wine, not just looking at it, big brother, Emma said. Aaron needed no further prompting. They sat like that for a full minute, and neither of them did anything else. The quiet interlude ended, and Emma jumped up from the table, startling Aaron. Do you like it? What is it? She asked. Oh, Emma, you have no idea. Actually, I think I do. You do this, and then something else, he said. That's enough, he thought. Emma pushed the tureen of mashed potatoes closer. She held a shiny serving spoon in front of Aaron's face. Next course, she said. Eat, Emma said. When they finished, they stepped back. Oh my God, Emma. I can't believe we're doing this. I know, she said. It's like a dream. And now everything will be better. Aaron pulled away from his sister and pushed his chair aside. Emma turned to face her brother. Lie down, he said. He took command, and Emma followed suit without protest. You've got sauce on your shoes, Emma, Aaron said. They're fine, Emma said. Let's not worry about shoes. Do you like it? What is it? She asked. Yes, he said. Aaron leaned back on the floor, lying next to his sister. Happy birthday, Aaron, Emma said. It was the best birthday present of my life. You always said I was good in the kitchen. I think you were right. Aaron laughed. You've never been better than you are tonight, Emma, he said. It was great dinner. A special menu from the chef, she said. They lay on the floor together for several minutes, saying nothing. She looked at him. Aaron recognized that look. It was the expression on his face in the photo in the living room. Aaron, I have to tell you something, Emma said. What is it? He asked. I've never really felt the swelling, Emma said, looking at the floor. Yes? Aaron challenged her. His eyes stared into her forehead as she looked away from him. You didn't fool me, he said. I knew it. Emma's mouth dropped open in surprise. Maybe I'm a fool, sis, Aaron said, but I'm not an idiot. Emma grinned, and her eyebrows arched. Don't I know that, my big smart brother, she said. It looks like you fooled me. He started to get up, but Emma grabbed his arm and pulled him back to the floor. Where do you think you're going? She demanded. I'm dirty, Aaron said. I thought I'd clean up. You're not going anywhere, big brother, Emma said. It's time for dessert. End.